You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Brian Kelly, Shane Beamer, both on the SEC Coaches Teleconference on Wednesday. There was one, I think maybe two notable things from Brian Kelly. First, he was asked about Chris Hilton. He was asked for an update there on the senior receiver. This is the official word on Hilton.
We put him as, I think, on our Wednesday that he was still questionable. We won't have an update for that until tomorrow.
I can tell you I was told, and we did report this over at LouisianaSports.net, that it's right there on the homepage at LouisianaSports.net, that Chris Hilton did not practice on Wednesday. There was a little bit of a shakeup of the schedule. So because the storm is coming in this evening when LSU would normally practice late afternoon, they moved their practice to 9:30 Wednesday morning. So they practiced Tuesday in their normal time. Quick turnaround to Wednesday morning. That'll give them a long layoff, almost a full day, more than 24 hours to rest, recover, be ready for Thursday's practice. Hopefully the storm passes, everything's okay. They're back out there Thursday in their normal slot. Friday they'll travel. Saturday morning, of course, they'll play at Williams-Brice Stadium. The other thing that was a bit newsworthy, noteworthy, look, this isn't a take that's unique to me. We've all talked about this at some capacity, some form or fashion over the last two seasons, year and a half thereabouts. It's been what you do with Harold Perkins, and that's something we all know at this point. Talked about it earlier this week. You've taken a player that was your most feared player, like the one guy you absolutely had to account for, and you've made him a bit of a non-factor by playing him in the position you are. But the other thing that goes hand in hand with that is when Harold Perkins is on the field as an off-ball linebacker, somebody else is off the field. So if you have Greg Penn on the field and Perkins in a 4-2-5, well, then Whit Weeks is coming off, or something along those lines, right? Last week, Greg Penn was your highest-graded defensive player. Forgive me, it was Zy Alexander was, but then Penn was in the top 5. Well, which is great. Well, then if you have Weeks and Perkins at off-ball linebacker, then Penn is coming off the field. But Brian Kelly did acknowledge on Wednesday, the question was specifically about Whit Weeks, who everybody's obviously very high on. We've been talking about him since he flashed last year as a freshman. And Brian Kelly kind of acknowledged the way Whit Weeks is playing, it is making them consider how they change personnel at linebacker.
Clearly, he has been our top performer and, has put himself in a position where it's going to be difficult for us to take him off the field at any time. And that's going to prompt us to, make some tough decisions relative to, the linebacker position. So, and that's a good thing because he's forced that because of his play. His consistency, his ability to make plays has given him the opportunity to be on the field, and, he can't be in a platoon situation.
I love that. I mean, think about, contrast that with what Brian Kelly said on Monday. When Kelly was talking to the media on Monday and he was kind of asked about the defensive backs, he talked about how Zy Alexander, I don't know if you have it, Muse, but where Zy Alexander could maybe give you 20 or 30 snaps. It was something around that. And I think the way Brian Kelly said it was, nobody can give you 65 snaps in the second. You had that play. This was Brian Kelly on. So I want you to compare that, where the context of what Kelly said about Whit Weeks was he's got to the point where, we can't platoon him. We can't take him off the field. Listen to the contrast of what he said Monday about the secondary.
I think what we have found is that nobody is at a point where they can play 65, 70 snaps. We have to get our players playing at the highest level, but not playing that many snaps. I think Zy can play, 30, 35, but he's going to have to be spelled as well. So, I think you're going to see 4 corners playing. I think you're going to see 4 or 5 safeties playing. So I think we're going to really rely on the depth of those units to make certain that we're playing at the highest level. And I think we'll be a better defensive backfield playing in that capacity.
So contrast that to what he said about linebacker. So we don't have anybody playing at a level good enough to where they can be out there for 65 or 70 snaps. We've got to platoon them. Here, Brian Kelly's telling you at linebacker, Whit Weeks is playing so well, we can't justify a platoon situation. He's got to be on the field. So what does that mean? If you want Harold Perkins on the field for 65 snaps, then he's got to move positions. Either that or he's going to lose reps, which you don't want to see that either because he's so dynamic. It's ultimately they're coming to the realization that they did a year ago, that this is not where Harold Perkins needs to be playing. I mean, that answer is as much about Harold Perkins as it is about Whit Weeks. See what they do this weekend in Columbia, South Carolina. By the way, I mean, the other part of that goes hand in hand is, Lenora Sellers, the South Carolina quarterback, is a big dude. He's 240 pounds. Against Old Dominion, when their offense stunk, he ran the ball 8 times. Last week against Kentucky, Lenora Sellers ran 22 times and threw it 14. Like, you have got to be tougher on the interior, in particular against this opponent. So, yeah, it's one of those things where you're probably going to see a little bit of a defensive shakeup. You need to, if for nothing else, for this opponent. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.